Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Disney Deconstructed Podcast. I'm your host, Lain Calder. Today, I am joined, as always, by my good friends Jake Moody.
Yo.
And Spencer Bennett.
How's it going, everyone? Special day.
Yeah, special day. Today, we are joined by a very special guest, been on the show before, the amazing Preston Moore.
Hello, how's it going?
Amazing. Thank you for joining us today, Preston.
For sure, I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Today we're just going to be talking about not too much news, honestly. There's some speculation about Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary and the Epcot overhaul and how all of that is going to be affected by COVID-19. Bob Iger has essentially been reinstated as CEO. He has said that the company will come back, but with fewer employees. So we will talk about that. And there has been an article that has come out that says that Netflix is now worth more than Disney. We will definitely get into that. How is COVID-19 affecting Disney? The Disney family sing-along
happened.
It happened, and we'll talk a bit about it, and we'll get into some fun, friendly debates between us and Preston Moore, who's joining us today.
That sounds like it's overwhelmingly like 3-on-1
I'm
gonna sit back and watch Jake.
I'm usually very middle ground in the debates that we do. I feel like I try to be the nice person in the middle. So
I'll see what happens, I guess.
We'll see what happens. But without and then lastly we'll do picks of the week, of course. And so without further ado, let's get right into it. We'll do the news first and talk about this speculation that everyone's been having about WDW's 50th anniversary, as well as the Epcot overhaul. So I guess we'll just kind of go around. Preston, I would love to get your ideas first about how these events will be affected.
Yeah, so I mean everything in life is up in the air right now, obviously. There's really no good way to put that, I guess. Everything everywhere is up in the air and no one really knows anything. But as it pertains to Disney World, they had this massive overhaul planned, as we all know, especially with Epcot. And with them closing the parks, I know at first a lot of people were like, oh, now they can like get some work done, while people are gone. Yeah, but they're also closing construction. So it's like I would hope, I would assume that since it is like an anniversary thing, it's not necessarily like a it's not just a random thing that they're doing. It's like there's a time element to this. They're doing it for the 50th anniversary. So I would assume and hope that they would like fast track it or do what they can to get things done by the 50th. That being said, they definitely might not. There's really no way to know. I don't think that hopefully they won't cancel part of it or like cut certain renovations that they were doing. I know that they've already gotten to work on just about everything in Epcot that they have announced. Like they've already been in construction. So I don't think they would cancel any of that or like, make any cuts there. But I can see it being prolonged. Hopefully not, since there's that time element, but I don't know,
Right. Yeah, I feel that there's definitely a certain idea of what we've seen with other prolongments. I think like Galaxy's Edge, how like Rise of the Resistance took a lot longer than a lot of people were expecting. So I think that it's possible that with like Epcot, certain aspects of the renovation will take longer than expected. But I feel like as a majority, I feel like there will be definitely this push to the finish line, if that makes sense. Because we've seen that before as well. I feel like Disneyland Shanghai comes to mind. when I think of
Mhm.
that. But I'd love to get everyone else's point of view. Spencer?
Yeah, I'm not so nervous at the idea that they're going to cancel specific things. More of that, I'm nervous that what was initially planned / promised is not necessarily going to be what gets made, with obvious good reason. I mean, there's no one could have seen this coming. I know that at Epcot, like Ratatouille and Guardians, I mean, they were doing work on those when we were in Florida last
Yeah.
June. So those are probably
Right.
pretty much locked at this point. Like the way that they were pitched or the way they're going to end up. I know Ratatouille's like pretty much done from everything that I've heard from different insiders and stuff.
Yeah.
But Mary Poppins, I don't know how far they've gotten into that construction. So it's just, is it going to be like with all the concept art we got at D23, is it going to look like that? Or is it going to be something way more scaled down just because, like you said, Preston, they're on a time crunch because this is all planned to basically have a whole gallery of new offerings for the 50th. How feasible can it be when you basically have just taken your, in the long run, who knows how long it'll be, but at least like 3 months off. Now you're 3 months behind schedule. You've lost an insane amount of revenue just as the company in general. It's definitely going to be pretty uncertain times. I do think something they have kind of in their favor is that that's like the 60th anniversary of Disneyland, the Diamond Celebration, felt like it was like 3 years long.
That's real.
It was
That's so real.
so long.
It was years.
So how long they want to stretch the 50th, like maybe the actual date of like the 50th anniversary of Magic Kingdom being open won't necessarily have all of the offerings they initially planned. But the way they phrase it is kind of like they're these celebrations, not necessarily just the date. So I think we'll definitely see them playing into that a lot more, trying to kind of, well, it's the 50th celebration, not necessarily the 50th date, just because of this current situation. But that's my take on it. I hope that things stay the same, but
I think they may do something akin to what they did with Galaxy's Edge at both parks, where they're like, here's Galaxy's Edge without this entire half of Galaxy's Edge, so they may be like, oh, it's the 50th now and we have all these new things and all these other things that aren't quite ready, but they're coming. You know what I mean?
Right. The phased opening.
Yeah. Which we have seen many a time and oft over the last few years.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't know if we talked about this already. Campus got officially delayed, but that's not surprising.
Yeah. I think like and with the 60th celebration in Disneyland, California, like if we're talking about the time that it took from the day that it initially officially started to the day where those like diamond roof
like spires got
the spires and the diamond roof decorations finally came down.
4 years.
Literally at least 3 years. It took forever.
Still run Disneyland Forever, which is the fireworks show from the Diamond Celebration. It's like the best show they've ever done at Disneyland, but they took a long time to let go of that.
Yeah.
Jake, what's your vibe?
Well, yeah, just end on that. Although 60th is like a nice, pretty number, and that's like a long time and whatever, 50th means something else, and Disney World means something else. Like, it's not just the Magic Kingdom 50th, it's the whole thing. So I feel like this is like, even though the 60th was like a big and awesome celebration, I mean, the 50th is like its own beast. But before we talk about it, I'm just scrolling through like these pictures. Epcot is like the coolest place. I'm so bummed. I miss it so much. Because when we were there, what properly blew me away was Animal Kingdom. Because like it doesn't even make sense how that place exists. Epcot to me, in theory, made sense. It's like, okay, here's the Tomorrowland stuff, and then like here's where you drink. But just like looking at it in like the concept art and everything, it's so cool. And then comparing it to DCA, which should be comparable, unbelievable. But anyways, I guess I'm a little more worried than you guys are, because even when they just announced everything at D23, it was very Epcot based, which was to be expected and exciting. I remember I was really, really excited like day of, and maybe like even when we recorded the podcast, but then in like the coming days and weeks when I started like, people started making videos about it. And then, we're reading the articles and like Disney's posting more concept art and things. Myself, and it seems like a couple other people online, started to get not like concerned, but just like a little bit put off, because they're like, one of the most exciting things for me was the Mary Poppins. It's like we're gonna get not only a new ride, but like a new extension of the land or a reimagining or whatever. And it felt like a really big deal. But they didn't tell us a single thing about the attraction, you know? And you would think if it's like a big, grand, awesome thing that they have in the books and ready to go for the 50th, they'd love to talk about it. But all they said is we're having a Mary Poppins attraction. A Mary Poppins attraction could very well just be a carousel. It won't be, but there's a difference between like a carousel and like an awesome dark ride.
I think they gave like a really short story pitch. Like Chapek said, basically you're going to fly over the house with the baby's children and stuff. It was very brief and kind of surface level, but they did have a story.
Right. Okay. As expected. I don't remember it, but
yeah, my impression was that it was in early development, like early development.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I remember the coolest thing, beyond Moana, which I'm really excited about because it's a walkthrough, which is like very different and, you know, just very different. So that's just exciting to begin with. But the coolest thing, the biggest like overhaul, which wasn't IP based, was like that. If you guys remember like that tiered like landscaping thing, like where the fountains used to be at the very end of Future World. And it just looked really cool. And I think they were going to have a statue of Walt there. I don't remember exactly.
They were going to add like, it was like Lookout Point or something.
Right, something like that.
Where you could view like the World Showcase and Walt was on a bench or something like that.
Right, which looked really cool. And if you look at like the concept art of like all of Epcot for like this overhaul, it's really big and grand, like smack in the middle. It looks awesome. But I was already, prior to anything happening, this was like months ago, hearing some articles that it's already getting scaled back. And then people were like, what's even in there? Is it just like stairs up to a garden, or is it going to be some kind of show or a restaurant? Like they didn't give any details on it. And then people started to say it's getting scaled back, and then COVID happens. So it's like, although like we were saying before, Guardians of the Galaxy and Ratatouille are like in the books because those have been done for the longest time, and Ratatouille already exists in a different park, so it's a copy paste deal. But the other things, I mean, you would think a company as big and grand as Disney and as big and grand of an event as the 50th, you know, has like stockpiles of money like ready to go in case of a pandemic, but apparently not. So I mean, who knows? And it does kind of suck. Because these things, you know, like what we kind of talked about last week, these are the things they've announced and we didn't even know that much about. Think about like the blue sky things that they were still concepting. Think of the things that they were going to announce at the next D23. It's like, dude, these things that exist and there's pictures of and were going to be built are going to be built, obviously, but I have to assume at least a little bit scaled back. And then all of the other things, I'm sure, are getting just completely dropped, which is a huge number.
Man. Defunct Land is going to have the best like content coming up. Like the COVID edition of Defunct Land, everything that got chopped.
That's a Netflix series on its own.
It is
season 4 of Defunct Land is going to be good quality content.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because you're right, Jake. You got to think they had a lot in the pipeline they hadn't even announced yet, just to kind of wait, keep building up anticipation for it.
You know,
those things they have more than enough reason to drop, and just like kind of. All right, well, we can't afford that now. And that's totally, they would rather do that than have the bad PR of canceling something that's already out in the open, you know?
Of course. Mm-hmm. And I mean, dude, even at our park in Disneyland, there have been consistent rumors for years, but like they seem to be coming to fruition. Like a third gate might have been coming. They were thinking about buying Angel Stadium was up for sale. The Angels are probably moving because of like city disagreements.
Right.
They were thinking about buying like the Garden Walk right across the street. They were just expanding the Toy Story parking lot. If you don't know, it's just like a Seconds parking lot, but it's all big and flat. It's a giant piece of land that basically hasn't been developed yet. I mean, there have been rumors and things going on for the longest time. And it's not like, you know, Disneyland Resort was having any kind of, you know, like over the summer, sure, there was like some attendance things with Galaxy's Edge, but that was a very momentary issue in regards to everything.
They were so busy about Christmas time.
You know?
It was still busy. It was Disney.
And I remember seeing videos about maybe they can convert half of downtown Disney into a DCA expansion. Like there were like real rumors that were going on, and I'm sure conversations within Imagineering, because I mean Disneyland is just continuing to be, I mean, the big investment of Galaxy's Edge, and then the announcement of the Mickey and Minnie ride. Like there's no slowing down there.
Mm-hmm.
But now what? I mean, the only option is to slow down, I guess, and it's just a huge bummer, honestly. So it's great that Guardians of the Galaxy, Ratatouille. We also forgot to mention that like space themed restaurant in Epcot seemed to be like really.
Oh
on the way,
yeah.
That's right.
which looked really fun. The
Yeah,
hotel, the Star Wars hotel.
Hotel.
That,
Mhm.
but the things that were in production already, I assume are all good to go. They're just going to be like paused. But you see, like Avengers Campus, that e-ticket, dude, no way. If we get it, it's going to be so far in the future, and it's going to be way smaller than whatever they were planning. You know, such a bummer, because now we're going to be stuck with Mission Breakout, which is fine, and the Spider-Man ride, which we assume is going to be a different version of Toy Story Mania.
Yeah.
So it's like
a
bummer.
2020, 2021-ish Toy Story
Mhm.
Mania.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my takeaway from it all. It's just like what could have been, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
But the Defunctland episodes.
Yeah.
I guess I did want to talk to Preston though while we have you here, just about like regardless of any of that stuff, like just the idea of updating Epcot, because this being your hometown park and resort, like
Mhm.
they're literally changing the whole front half of the park.
Yeah.
And then the IPs everywhere, which is like very against what Epcot used to be. So we all,
Right.
the people who usually do this show, we've spent a couple days there. You spent a summer there, you know, so you have a very different connection to it than we do. So I'm
Yeah.
curious to see what you felt about all of that, like when it was announced.
Epcot's always been my favorite park.
Nice.
Favorite Disney park ever anywhere. Absolutely love it. I don't like it's weird. I've never had like Epcot's my favorite park because of this, and this. It's been just like Epcot's my favorite park because Epcot. Like it is what it is, and I love it. So I was pretty skeptical about all the changes. Most skeptical about what they're doing to Spaceship Earth with
Mm.
shutting it down for like 2
Agreed.
weeks to renovate, and then just
Agreed.
not even knowing what it's going to be, which is
You're like apparently following some little light or something.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I understand though, like it needed like most of the things in Epcot definitely needed a renovation of some sort. I think it was definitely next in line in terms of like when you look at all of Walt Disney World, like it was definitely like Hollywood Studios needed it, and now you know what's next, definitely Epcot, you know, or at
Right.
least the world within Epcot.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But I love it. So it's like I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I don't know
So-
if I want it to change. I don't know if I trust it that much. You know,
So what was
excited
what was
for
your
it, but-
reaction when those changes like first initially started happening? Like what was your reaction when they started taking out the rocks,
Mhm.
contributor rocks?
Well, that was weird because 8-year-old Preston's face is on one of those. I'm no longer in the park. No, I'm just outside the gate. But I am on there if any listeners want to find me. I don't look like I do now, but I don't know. The construction, the last time I went was early February. I was supposed to be going here in about 2 weeks, but obviously not anymore.
Dang, really?
Yeah, it's a bummer, but
That sucks.
it's fine. So I was there early February, and they had gotten in. There were at the time, I want to say 14 construction sites were
Wow.
reported.
Wow.
So that's what I mean when I say, and I don't know specifically what was each one, but I know they've started work on quite a lot. I know for sure, obviously, like Guardians, just about done. Ratatouille, probably
Yeah.
in the testing phase at least, you know.
Uh-huh.
Those two were done, or those two were like probably about 50% done at the time that I was, you know, living and working there in fall 2018. So that was a while ago. As for the other stuff, I know they started work on the play pavilion thing.
Oh,
right.
yeah, I
working
completely
on-
forgot about that.
Yeah, I know they started
Mhm.
working on the new fountain in front of in front of Spaceship Earth as you enter the park.
Mm.
But the rest of them were just kind of like, I have no idea what those construction sites were. But I know that they had a lot. So I know that they had already started on a lot of things, but I was definitely, it was bittersweet to see my favorite park like not in full function,
feel
I
that.
guess, mode.
Right.
Because it was like you just walk around. I mean, cardboard.
It's like a shell
not
of itself,
but
kind
like
of.
massive wooden walls everywhere. Like you
Uh-huh.
don't see anything. But it's definitely. I think there are a lot of upgrades. I'm excited for like the space restaurant, that little garden rooftop garden, which I found out is called Dreamers Point. I
That's
think.
what it
There
is.
it is.
Dreamers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that sounds fun, even if there's nothing there. Like it'll just be cool to have like a rooftop garden. It looks gorgeous. I think adding Mary Poppins isn't necessarily a bad thing. Mary Poppins and Moana, like I don't have a problem with adding them, even though they're like kind of stuffing IPs everywhere. Like
They
there
want
wasn't.
to make it more of a kids park, I think.
I think that, and also there wasn't anything really there before.
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
I see
like
that.
when you look, even with Ratatouille. I mean, Ratatouille is just like they're just putting a ride behind where France was.
Right.
They're not replacing anything.
Right.
I would understand the complaints when they added Frozen Ever After over the Maelstrom, but in terms of like Moana and Mary Poppins and Ratatouille, like there's nothing there right now. They're just inserting it where right now there's just generic English buildings, I guess, which
Yeah.
is kind of stuffing IPs, but I never had any problem with that. My main concern was always Spaceship Earth because that's my baby, and
Oh,
Agreed.
Jake loves him some Spaceship
So
Earth.
when you were there in February, was Spaceship Earth still running?
yeah.
Oh yeah. Damn.
Yeah. I don't know when they were planning on closing it, or if they already have or had before they canceled or before they closed.
But you
I
got to
think
say your
it-
goodbyes,
It
which is
did.
nice.
Yeah.
I think its like planned last date was during this pandemic,
Yeah.
because I
Really?
remember there was a big Diz Twitter thing where people had planned trips to like ride
Oh,
Epcot
yeah.
or
Oh,
Spaceship
no.
Earth on its last day, and it was no longer open.
So
no.
brutal.
Which is like
So
the
sad.
biggest. That's just sucks. I
Yeah.
think your point about how you're like almost nostalgic for Epcot, to like older Epcot, it plays into our view on Hollywood Studios, where Epcot is like dated, but there's still something charming about it. Hollywood Studios is at a point where it's so dated that it's like eye rolling
Yeah.
almost, and it's just weird that in the same resort there are these two different parks that are both like dated, and Epcot's getting like the remake it needs, and Hollywood Studios just got Runaway Railway and Galaxy's Edge. They're on their way to building that park back up.
Yeah.
But it's weird how revered Epcot is, how loved Epcot is, versus like the dating of Hollywood Studios.
Hollywood
It's just
Studios,
interesting.
just about everybody was just like, all right, let's
Yeah,
get
it's
it
so
out
like
of here.
90s
This is
Michael
we're done.
Eisner.
Yeah, it's
that it's
so
just time to go.
so hilariously Eisner is the best way to describe
Well,
it.
it's like what the original plan of DCA was
Yeah.
Hollywood Studios.
Nice.
Right.
It's interesting times.
So another question for you before we move on, but staying with Disney World, were you there with the Skyliner?
Yes, it's amazing.
How'd that
Oh,
go?
God.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that is, the response that I've seen has been incredible too from people who have ridden it. I would imagine, I don't have any like insider info about this from anybody I know, but I would imagine that they want to connect all four parks at some time in the future. I would imagine that Skyliner's a way to do
I'm
it.
sure.
because
Sure.
we stayed in the Riviera, which was incredible, which has Skyliner. You can go into Epcot and Hollywood Studios via the Skyliner, straight from the hotel. And it was just, it's fast, it's efficient, it's smooth, it's not too scary. And like, it was awesome. I don't know if I would have loved it as much if I were staying at a resort that didn't have it, but like
True.
having it just there and like, boom, you're at Hollywood Studios in like
And
maybe
Epcot, yeah.
5-6 minutes, or in Epcot in 5-6 minutes. Like, it was awesome. And the views are great. Like, we actually, we went, the one I rode it the most was when I went directly after Christmas with my family, and we, for New Year's Eve, we didn't go to a park because we weren't gonna mess with that. So we got on the Skyliner and we could see Magic Kingdom, Epcot, and Hollywood Studios fireworks from our little gondola.
sick.
And we were
That's
like
awesome.
we had a great view of Epcot. Epcot was like right there. So the Skyliner is absolutely incredible. Like it's the best mode of transportation that Disney has
Cool. That's awesome.
by far. And I would be shocked if they don't add more in the next 5-6 years.
Yeah, I mean, there's no need for something like that in California because the parks are right next to each other. But I mean, such a like big factor in the charm for people who aren't used to it. It's like you have the monorail here, you have the Skyliner here. When we were there, we took the boats to Disney Springs.
Yeah.
There's just like so many different ways to go around. You're like really in your own world, which is so cool. And but you know, I will say, I know Spencer disagrees. I thought the buses were a complete pain in the ass. Like,
Oh my God.
They just sucked.
They
And
were
it was so
fine.
They were. I would not do them again.
They were
How
fine.
would you get around?
The Skyliner, the
I would
monorail.
take the
Now.
Skyliner, the monorail, and the mini lift.
So, but I'm happy and glad to see they're addressing, because to me, I mean, Lain, you have to remember, we were there at like peak hotness. It could not be hotter and more miserable than when we were there. So, and I do remember they made new buses with like chargers or something. So like, it's cool to see updates in places that frankly they needed, just like Epcot. They needed things in Epcot. So it's cool to see, you know, like we always say, now more than ever, that we'll just have to wait and see what happens because of COVID. So.
Yeah, it's interesting because like we were talking about the Star Wars hotel being planned. I mean, that was going to be like a huge moneymaker for them. It was like $5,000 a night or something crazy. So it's like from a business point of view, like right now they're like hemorrhaging money, but do you go ahead with the things that you know are for sure going to bring back big returns, like a Star Wars hotel? Will they go like full steam ahead on that and maybe pump the brakes on something like Mary Poppins, which may not necessarily generate huge, because is it going to be an e-ticket? Like, we don't know. Probably not. I assume it's going to be like a fun dark ride kind of vibe. But will that, you know, bring in the same revenue as a Star Wars hotel? Like, absolutely not. So it'll be interesting to see where because money now is tight. So where do they choose to put what they have? It's going to be cool.
I think the answer to that, we've talked about it before, was the virtual queues. They've been, I mean, they work, although they're kind of a pain in the ass. They work, and it keeps people out of cramped, crowded spaces and into wandering around the parks. And when people are wandering around the parks, they buy a slushie or a t-shirt or whatever. And it's more fun to walk around and go in the shops than stand in a crowded space, even if the queue is really cool. So it's like two birds with one stone. I have to imagine that's the answer. And then Orlando was already basically doing it with the Fast Pass Plus. I mean, that was like a half step away from doing all virtual queues. So.
Right.
Anyways, we probably should move on from all that.
So yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about Bob Iger now. Bob Iger has, for all intents and purposes, been essentially reinstated as CEO. Talking about the company coming back, but with, quote, fewer employees. Spencer, I would love to get your response first.
Yeah. So especially that quote is interesting because it's like, does it apply to cast members? Does it apply to salaried executives? Like, what does that mean? Are they going to be closing smaller like production houses within the studio? It's very vague, probably purposely vague. But definitely. It's definitely concerning, and it's just concerning. I mean, him coming back as CEO is great. Like, Bob Iger is a legend as far as the Walt Disney Company. Like, he turned them into an empire. He took a studio that had just gone through a renaissance and was kind of plateauing, and immediately brought them back into like a glory days, basically. So Bob Iger is like, he's a business genius. He's obvious. I think he has some creative capabilities too. I mean, he wouldn't have.
He does.
He's got to. He hires Kevin Feige. He hires these people that know what they're doing. He's got to be able to judge people to know what the people who know what they're doing. You know, so Bob Iger is just a great leader. Like Jake said before we started the show, people thought about him being president for a while.
Yeah.
I thought the reason he stepped down as CEO was he was going to join the Democratic primary because it was so crazy for a while. Obviously, that didn't happen. But I think it's great news that Iger's commanding the ship. I think it's interesting on what it says about Disney's faith in Chapek. I don't know how far to read into that, but I mean, if you think about it, like take a step back, he was just given the job. So
Right.
maybe
He
they're just
had
not
zero chance to do anything.
Right,
literally.
right.
Yeah.
So maybe Disney's like, we'll let you we're not going to start your tenure as CEO with this huge bomb. So we'll give it back. We'll give most control back to Bob, and then we'll let you prove yourself later on. Or
The other Bob.
do they have no faith in Bob Chapek?
Right.
Which is an interesting discussion. Nobody knows, but I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. But the fewer employees quote, yeah, it's concerning. It makes me sad for all the cast members in the parks and whoever, or hopefully it means like people that are salaried, because that would make more sense. Because how much budget are you going to save by like cutting like $12 an hour cast members,
Right.
versus like big salaried executives over branches that you may necessarily not need anymore. But yeah, what do you guys think about Iger Chapek situation? What's the take?
Why don't we go with Preston first?
Yeah.
I also want to hear your reaction, regardless of what happens later in the future, too, when they named Chapek the CEO.
Yeah. Well, when they named him the CEO, I was devastated.
Whoa!
I was not happy about it. Of all people, I mean, I have not, historically, from what I've seen, and I could be wrong, I'm not, as well versed. I'd imagine I'm not as well versed in, Disney executive tenures.
Yeah.
As the three of you are, but
Oh, wow.
Chapek,
Well, thank you.
from yeah, you're welcome. Chapek, from what I've seen, has time and time again put profit over like creativity, and
I agree with you.
that is not someone that I want in charge of all of Disney, because the things he's done in the parks, obviously there have been some really awesome things. Like Galaxy's Edge is incredible. It was supposed to be more incredible,
Yeah.
and that is just a massive red flag for me. So I wasn't super happy about it. I hope that they don't go stuffing IPs into everything in terms of the parks, because maybe that makes more money here and there. I thought I think Bob Iger has done an incredible job. I think he's done really, really well. I was surprised he stepped down, and I was surprised that Chapek was the replacement. I don't think I expected that at all. I don't know who it would have been instead, but it just surprised me. In terms of this whole switch up thing, I mean, I would like to say that it's because I don't have faith in Chapek, but I don't think that's it. That would be cool, I guess. I don't know. But I think it's more of a like, oh shoot, we just named you CEO, and then we had to close everything. Like this dude, like you put yourself in Bob Chapek's shoes, that's like a nightmare. Like you're now in charge of one of the most powerful companies in the history of the world, and and you're in the biggest crisis that you've seen in decades, and like what what do you do?
Right.
Like that's a terrible situation to be in. So I can imagine that they had it, and then they were like, oh, okay, well, we're gonna let Iger kind of run the show, and maybe you can, obviously I'm sure that I know they said that he'd been like learning under Iger for months before they officially announced the switch. But I'd imagine that during the crisis, they're like, okay, well, we don't want to throw you into this immediately, so Iger, go ahead, go back in. And Chapek, you can resume whenever this all blows over, hopefully, and then like Spencer said, you'll have your time to prove yourself or whatever. I think that is probably more likely. In terms of like, less employees, that is really sad. I would like to think that it's for salaried, executives, the guys who are making the big bucks. Because when you think about it, at the end of the day, cast members like on the ground in the parks, how much of that can you actually cut, and how much revenue are you going to get from that? Like you've already got, obviously you have a little bit of leeway with, they've canceled like college programs everywhere for the June arrivals, and then they sent home all the spring people. But
That's almost a reaction to COVID over salary stuff.
Yeah.
No, yeah,
money
for
stuff.
sure. For sure. It definitely is. But I mean, in terms of like numbers of who you have working in the parks, like you have some leeway to where you can do that, I think.
Right.
But how much leeway do you have in terms of like you need X amount of people in Magic Kingdom? X amount
Exactly.
of people in Epcot. Like that's on the ground. You have to have those people there. In terms of like salaried executives, maybe you can shift things up to where you can, have one office control more things and therefore have less employees, and maybe save a little money there. But yeah, I don't know. It sucks. It sucks.
It does.
Yeah, I see that. With the employees thing, obviously none of us are economists, but exactly what you were just talking about, like in terms of people on the grounds at all the parks all around the world, it's like if you are to fire the ride op, you just need another ride op right when it opens.
Exactly.
And the only thing I can imagine that you can feasibly cut, which unfortunately we've seen at least in Disneyland Resort a lot of already, cutting a lot of like the live entertainment things, which is a bummer. So potentially we come back and there's less live entertainment, like who knows what it's going to look like. Can you pack so many people in to watch a show like what they were used to doing? Who knows exactly what that's going to look like. But yeah, like out of all the, I don't know what like all the different cast member jobs are, but like if for the people who like work in the ice cream store, you're just going to need another person to work in the ice cream store right when it opens. So
Yeah.
it has to be like the bigger guys. But with that being said, I have no idea how any of that stuff works.
To give my thoughts, and yes, I may not be an economist, but I do have a business minor.
There you go.
But I kind of agree with all of you, especially I'm kind of between Spencer and Preston. I think that if there is room to, in a manner of speaking, stretch cast members, I think that may be done when things reopen. So it's like, hey, if you're able to work more hours, please do so, because the bottom line is that it's easier to pay someone a bit more than to hire a whole nother person. That's just the fact of the matter. But I do agree with you that at a certain point, you need those people down on the ground in the parks, talking to people and helping people, and running the rides and the attractions and the shops and everything. Like, you need to run the park, and you need a certain amount of staff in order to do that. So I do feel like most of those cuts and layoffs would be higher budget or higher salaried people. Not to say that there wouldn't be any cuts that come at the cast member level. I do think that could happen. I'm not saying that it won't, and I'm not saying that it will, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did to some extent. But I feel like it wouldn't happen to the same extent that it would at the upper salary folks.
Right.
Yeah. In regards to,
go ahead, Jake.
no, go ahead. You go ahead.
I think your point,
topic.
Preston, about how you would need to, they have the amount of people that they need right now to run the park, unless they plan on doing a full shift on how the parks operate, which would be insane, but like maybe not out of the question at this point. Who knows? Then they would kind of have a reevaluation of how everything operates. But if they plan on, going back to normal, that's what everyone keeps saying, is when things return to normal. I mean, there's not much downsizing to do within the parks itself. Like, they pretty much are stretched as thin as they can be, like operationally, like safety wise. Like, you got to think like they have safety ordinance they have to follow, like from the government, and just like general wisdom, like to keep people safe within the parks, like crowd control. Like, you can't just cut certain things. So it's very interesting if they do plan on downsizing at the cast member level, you almost have to flip how the parks operate in general. So that would be a full different discussion. But
I see that. The only thing before we move on from this about the Chapek thing because I'm about 90% of the way there with Preston. And the reason why I have this 10% is because I don't remember who I was watching or listening to, probably the SMY newscast. But each CEO that you can remember, I mean, okay, so Walt, and then Michael Eisner, and then Iger, all very clearly like had their own like mission statement and like wanted to like leave a piece of them in the company. You don't just fall into a position like that, right? So we have, I mean, this is where I'm with you. The things that Chapek seems to be solely responsible for, I'm with you. They're not some of my favorite stuff, and it could have been some of my favorite stuff. That's why it's such a bummer. And then things that are just like dumb, like Pixar Pier, and they just got staggered for so long, and like you can see directly through like a decision like that. So I'm with you that like he's definitely a maximize profit kinds of guy, as opposed to let's tell this new incredible story. At least it seems like that. But I love the idea of the next CEO coming from the parks. I mean, even if I don't agree with the things he does from the parks, they chose somebody who was in charge of Disneyland, you know? So it's like where Iger definitely was into the like thing that he's going to leave behind beyond Disney Plus is acquisitions of these giant studios. And now they have so many more things to make movies about. This guy came from parks. So you have to imagine, even if I don't like all the things he did with the parks, it's still somebody coming from Imagineering. So I love that decision. I mean, I don't need them buying Sony, you know, like they've already acquired everything they can. So let's shift the focus now. So that was like the silver lining behind it all.
That's a very good point.
You know what I mean? But in regards to the Iger and Chapek thing, I mean, it really wacko and weird. I don't know. Also, the biggest, like the rumor was it was either going to be Chapek or I don't remember his name, but it's basically like the direct consumer person. So it's basically the guy in charge of Disney Plus. And that's the guy who is doing the best job at Disney right now. I mean, if there's anything that they're doing well right now, it's everything online. They're killing it, not only with Disney Plus, but with, talk about it in a minute, like this family sing-along and like the phone number dial thing. And they're making really cute, like Disney animated YouTube videos. That's all him. And he's killing it. The only saving grace in their stocks.
Is it Kevin Mayer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Speak
who knows?
His name.
Maybe they come back from all of this and they say we're doing a little shakeup and now he's in charge, because he's the guy directly in charge of the only profitable thing. Granted, it's not like because of him, it's because everything else is physically shut, but he stepped up to the plate and is doing awesome. So, I mean, that is a possibility and worth talking about, because the like articles that we're reading about whatever's happening at CEO, frankly, make no sense, especially for a company this big. Like, how do we not know? The articles say he's back, but then articles are like, well, we're not going to say it like that exactly. On the website, it still says Chapek, but Chapek is nowhere in the news. So it just doesn't make sense at all. So we very well could come back to that world.
It might be a publicity act, maybe because Iger is such a friendly face to a majority of the world, you know, unless you're like someone who's like very anti-Disney, which those people exist, and you're allowed to have your incorrect opinion. But, but do you think it might be a saving face kind of thing? Because I know a lot of people were uneasy, like, oh my God, like we just talked about like a new CEO in charge of this crisis. Maybe it's a saving like PR kind of thing with like, well, no, Iger's got it handled. I think if Disney gets through this and is like stronger than ever, and then we get a release that actually it was Chapek the whole time, that I wouldn't be shocked. But I think there's so many different ways to think about it. I definitely think the first thing I said, which is that it's just Iger's tried and true. They don't want to put Chapek under the stress in his first little bit. That's probably what's going on, but there are some valid other options there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, we talked this to death.
Yeah, I definitely think it's possible that that Iger will be like, at the end of all this, he'll be like, oh, actually, you know, it was, you know, Chapek, he took on the huge load on his back through all of this, you know, it was mostly him. and then we'll be sitting having this same conversation,
exactly,
being like, is that true? Was that a stunt? It's like, was it Iger? Was it JPEG? But whatever. That yet to come.
Yeah, exactly. But it will.
So, yeah.
Well, the reason we're theorizing because it's such a weird announcement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, moving on. Finally, an article came out that Jake, you actually read, I believe it was, that Netflix is now worth more than Disney. Tell us a bit about that.
It's just crazy.
Dun, dun.
I mean, those words make no sense, because we were on the podcast a couple months ago, and I was like so firmly on the team of Disney Plus is about to kill Netflix.
You and I both ragged on Netflix for like an hour.
Dude, well, because the thing is, with everybody making their own streaming service, and Disney opened that door, and now Peacock is a thing, and HBO Max is about to be a thing.
They really opened Pandora's box for streaming services.
Well, listen, the thing
100%.
is, so you're taking all the licensed stuff off of Netflix. So the only things that exist are Netflix exclusives. So they've got some fun comedy specials, Stranger Things. I'm going to continue to pay for Stranger Things when I can watch every Warner Brothers movie ever made, and every Disney movie, and every Fox movie, and Hulu is just going to merge with Disney Plus. And I'm like, there's no way that it can happen. But like I just said, Disney Plus, it had like 50 million new subscribers or whatever, and it's still losing to Netflix. So apparently I don't know anything.
So
I will say,
yeah,
Netflix,
go ahead, Preston.
Netflix, like, it was more of a like a split, and I'm, again, not an economist, don't know anything about it, but I just looked it up. So it was more of a Netflix is worth more than Disney for right now. But now
I was about to say that, yeah.
Disney's back on top. I can say, like, I'll look up the numbers, but
and
Netflix was at 187.3 billion and Disney was 186.6. So it was literally 0.7 more. And now Disney's already back.
Even the fact that they're that close right now is crazy.
It's because Disney or Netflix is a streaming service, and that's it. Disney is a streaming service and 50 other things.
Right.
So that's why it's so insane to even be like competing. Like, they shouldn't even be in the same market.
Well, because of this crisis, they're now equal footing. They're both just streaming.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
So Netflix definitely has skyrocketed in the last few weeks, I'm sure. I mean, it's skyrocketed on my TV. So it's
well, exactly. Like, because if you're stuck inside and you want to watch something, I mean, you can get, I love Disney, but even then, like, you can get a little tired of watching Disney content because it's a very specific type of content.
Right.
Whereas Netflix has a wider variety.
A wider variety. And I think because Disney Plus is so new, this is going to change in the next couple of years. I think ideally that's the plan, but Netflix has more new content and just more content.
Definitely.
And I think there's more of an appeal because, Disney Plus, they've got those weird, weird 90s live action Disney movies that
like Splash with Tom Hanks.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that's weird. But that's like
this?
that's the content that you can find on Disney Plus. They're like, oh, I didn't know that existed. With Netflix, I mean, it's like every 3 or 4 days you find something and you're like, I didn't know that existed. Cool.
And think about it. Love is Blind and Tiger King were like the two most popular shows of the year. And they came out like 2 weeks apart, both on the exact same streaming service. So, and they're not stopping. They've got like 3 in the pipeline that look exactly the same. And they're just continuing to make Tiger King, I guess. So, it's
they'll break Joe Exotic out of jail if they have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Seeking a presidential pardon from Donald Trump.
I know.
Oh my God.
So,
I was surprised.
About the actual numbers, like it was clearly like a really scandalous headline just to be exciting, because it was literally citing like the amount of money per share, which is really like a weird number, because like you can, like GE, let's say, like the giant tech company, their share can be like $3 a share, but it's just like structured in a different way, where Disney used to sit at like 110, 120, but it's just a completely different way of buying. Like one Disney share is equivalent to 30, 40 GE shares, even though GE is still a really good company. You know what I mean? So the numbers were just to make a scandalous headline, but at the same time, it's true. And it's just like crazy that we're even in that world, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm kind of sitting with y'all on this. I still use Netflix a lot. I feel like at a certain point, hold on, I'll correct this. I think if I remember correctly, when we were initially having this discussion, I did not think that Disney was going to beat, quote, Netflix. I thought that Disney and Netflix, because I don't think that you can really like take out Netflix. I think that Disney and Netflix are going to be like two of their own things. I think that Disney and Netflix can take out the other smaller competitors, definitely, because Disney, you have the family programs for all the people who have kids at home right now, and Netflix, you have a lot of adult programs, and Tiger King. Yeah. So it's like, do I think that Peacock is going to survive in comparison to Netflix and Disney Plus? I don't really know. I have my doubts.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm hopeful because it sounds cool. I think that HBO Max is definitely going to do well.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that HBO has proven that it's its own thing with its own platform and all that. It's its own unique platform. I think that I'm wondering, the thing about Peacock that concerns me is that I don't know if people who have watched, Parks and Rec, The Office 7 times are going to be willing to pay for another service in order to watch it another 7 times.
That's the thing. I think Peacock is free with ads. So
Really?
That's the difference. I think Peacock is you don't
How
have
are
to
they
do
gonna make
subscription.
money? Just ads only?
Yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, they've got like the two, just The Office and Parks and Rec are more than enough to.
Well, then that would be my concern because I hate ads.
Right, and then I'm sure there's a premium version that you can buy with no ads.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
That's why
I will
Hulu
say
sucks.
I will say that I've been
Yes.
loving Quibi.
Yeah,
really?
I can't believe that. I cannot believe that.
I
thought it was
absolutely,
the
Preston,
dumbest
right?
pitch.
dude.
I
I have to
tried
say,
it.
I thought that I was not gonna like it. I love it. I'm
What are you
loving it.
watching? I don't understand.
So there's this one show called Murder House Flip, and it's kind of like your HGTV house flipping show. But the twist is that every house they flip had a murder in it.
That's kind of fun. That's kind of fun.
It's amazing. It's amazing content.
That sounds like a Family Guy sketch.
I know,
Yeah,
seriously.
it's a show.
You have to
SNL
watch
shit.
it on your phone.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
on your phone.
Wacko. That
There's
doesn't make
also some really cool docu-series that are on there. There's a sports docu-series that's really cool. There's a docu-series about this chef who travels to Italy to try to like reclaim these forms of pasta that are dying off. Like he wants to rediscover them and bring them to his restaurant.
And
so
so here's the thing. Let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
You're paying
to
watch
the first 3 months are
only
free
on your phone. Okay, so that's everybody's going to watch it for 3 months and then just not do it.
I don't think so. I think that people are going to keep doing it because it's fun.
Okay, then
I like
Murder
it.
House Flip has to be sold already.
Murder House Flip is sick.
But it just sounds like that could be a YouTube video.
I don't know.
The pitch
I mean,
itself, I thought this is just YouTube TV, which is a huge failure.
Right.
yeah, but the thing is, I don't know. They have a definite production quality that I was not quite expecting. If that makes sense.
A good number of celebrities too.
They have a lot of celebrities in their content, and I really wasn't sure how the flipping, because there's this like the big one of the big things was like you can flip.
Do you hear what you're saying right now?
Yeah, I hear what I'm saying.
Words coming out of your mouth.
They're like, oh, you can, because I thought it was stupid. I was like, oh, you can flip from portrait mode to landscape mode whenever you want. in the
Your
middle.
phone just
Yeah.
does that, man.
It's so dumb. Dude.
I know.
So just a
And,
little arrow just points up, and you're like, oh, time to see it in a different.
No. You just like can,
can
do it
choose
whenever
to.
you
They've
whenever
got
you
a
want, and
portrait
it.
viewing mode. I watched a little bit. I didn't like it very much. I'm glad you like it, Lain, but it was not for me. But you can like flip it, and there's a portrait mode, which essentially just cuts off a ton of everything.
That's what it sounds like, unless you're filming the thing twice with a different camera.
Which it seems like they film it once, and then like if you're doing it in portrait mode, they just edit it differently. And then it switches to the different edit is kind of how it seems. And I've figured out that like the studio based shows, like the ESPN show that they have, and the NBC News one that they have, like anything kind of studio based seems much more comfortable to watch portrait mode. And then anything that's like, I guess, field based, anything that's outside, like if I'm watching Murder House Flip, then I much would rather watch it in landscape mode, you know? So yeah, that's Quibi. I'm enjoying Quibi, but I think it's definitely a person-to-person experience. I don't think it's for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even use TikTok, but it's gigantic and it does the exact same thing that Quibi wanted to do, and it's very free. So I don't know who's going to continue. I mean, adults.
It's not. TikTok
is more like
media.
Vine.
Yeah.
No, right.
Quibi's like professionally made stuff.
Right, but it's supposed to only be a few minutes.
Also,
like it's supposed to be a little quick.
TikTok's like 5 seconds.
I mean, yes,
story
but
you can get through.
You guys will like this, especially Spencer. They just released a new show, I think last week on Quibi, that's produced by Sam Raimi.
Oh.
And it's called 50 States of Fright. And it's an anthology horror series with where each installment takes place in a different US state.
Oh, that
sounds awesome.
That's actually kind of cool. I'd like to see that.
See, I would get 3 months to watch like a couple episodes of that and see if I like it. And Murder House Flip, of course. But
yeah, Murder House Flip is sick.
I can't wait. I'm gonna watch some of that tonight.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway,
I'll bootleg it though.
So we're kind of going through like the little news things. I really wanted to bring up. It wasn't on our list. I really wanted to bring up that Sam Raimi is officially directing Doctor Strange 2.
Forgot about that.
That was speculated for a while and rumored.
Knew that he was meeting with Disney execs and Marvel execs. He's officially directing Doctor Strange 2. Was it Multiverse of Madness? Yeah, super excited for that. I can't wait.
I mean, last week you and I convinced Jake that he was better than Scott Derrickson for the job.
I know, literally.
Yeah, I know.
Well, the thing was,
I
was just bummed because it happens. I was just thinking about Ant-Man because Edgar Wright was attached to that for the longest time, and I'm sure it had such a vision and was going to be so different and cool. And then he got fired because it was going to be different and cool, and they needed it to fit.
The universe kind of grew
into
beyond
the universe
Edgar Wright's style.
Yeah,
right. To the point where they got Scott Disick. What's his name?
Scott Derrickson.
Disick is the Kardashian, I think.
Oh, God.
So they got this guy because he's a horror director. He did Doctor Strange 1, has got some really cool and freaky sequences, but all in all, it fits perfectly well with everything they're doing. They announced this new movie. With the announcement, they say it's going to be creepy and weird. It's called Multiverse of Madness. Super here for it. And then he gets fired. So I'm like, okay, so he had these crazy cool ideas, and they were like, you can't do it. So although Sam Raimi's a really cool name, and he comes from Evil Dead, and he comes from Spider-Man movies, so it's like it makes perfect sense, but it just gets me nervous to why did they get rid of him in the first place? Was the story too unique and cool?
Yeah, I don't think that. I mean, I don't think that they would have hired Sam Raimi if they weren't willing to let him be Sam Raimi on it. You know?
Yeah, but then why have the Scott Disick? You know.
Because
true.
I fucking hated Doctor Strange 1. I'm glad that Scott
Derrickson
isn't doing it.
It made a lot of money, and it's got the cool sequences. So it had to be a great difference.
It looked very cool, but to me, I was like, this is just another origin story.
I never even watched it. I'm gonna
It's-
be
Oh, you
totally
should watch
real.
it. You should
It's
watch
like
it.
one of the two I haven't seen in
The
the
v-
MCU.
The visual effects are very cool, but it's very like they just kind of play him off like he's another Tony Stark-ish character.
Yeah,
It's
pretty
got a
much.
really cool climax, though. Like a really, really fun climax.
That's
I'll
true.
say.
Okay, I guess just watch it for the climax then.
Yeah, that's true.
Jake really wants you to watch it for the
I'm
climax.
so trying not to make a terrible joke.
Yeah,
right
I know,
now.
I
right?
know. Well, I usually watch other movies for just the climax. So I guess if
There
I'm
it
gonna watch a
is.
movie, I'll watch the whole
We talk about Disney on this show, Jake.
thing.
Anyway, the Disney family sing along.
That's going viral. That, like you said, that's like another one of those things where that guy in charge of at-home programming is killing it. Like, what a great idea. Get a
Yeah.
bunch of famous singers to sing people's favorite Disney songs. Ariana Grande did the Hercules one that Meg sings. I don't remember what it's called. Like, I don't want to
Mhm.
be in love or something. And it was huge. Twitter blew up. What a
Mhm.
great idea.
Yeah, who gives a fuck?
I didn't watch it, but it definitely looked cute. What I wanted to bring up along those lines was the like Olaf. I think it was called Olaf at Home, literally Frozen at
Yeah.
Home. I know Spencer didn't see it, but they're just really cute.
Yes.
Apparently, it came straight from Josh Gad, like an idea from him. He literally must just record like a minute of him being Olaf on his phone, sends it to the Disney animation people, and then they animate like a 1-minute short at home. Really cute and fun idea. And then they put it on.
Josh Gad must have like an amazing recorder on his phone.
Okay, fine. But I think it's cute. And then on top of it, they don't even put it on Disney Plus. It's on YouTube, so it's like ultra
Yeah.
free, which
And
is
just on Instagram.
right. So it's
Yeah.
I just thought that's like a very sweet. Nobody expected anybody involved to do anything like that. So that was just like a really cute thing.
Disney
Yeah.
works so hard to make sure that Josh Gad is like
I know, right?
beloved. They're like, oh, this was his idea. And then remember when we were at Disney World on the bus, it was like they were like he was like promoting Beauty and the Beast and promoting Frozen.
Yes, yes.
He like
Dude,
They're
Disney
like-
Josh Gad
loves
is
them
the
some
guy.
Josh Gad.
they're like
And he's in-
you're gonna be beloved as long as you're corporate.
He's gonna be in Artemis Fowl too.
Is he
Is
in
he
Artemis
really?
Oh
Fowl?
God, is he?
Well,
I
now
don't know
gotta
anything
watch.
about that movie, but it did get moved to Disney Plus June
Yeah.
12th, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
talked about that a bit last week.
Now I need to check out Artemis Fowl. My boy Josh Gad's in it.
Yeah.
I'll just watch the Josh Gad scenes. I'll scrub through. And
I'll
stuff.
just get a Josh Gad supercut and get
Yeah.
it on YouTube and watch that.
Every Josh Gad scene from every Disney movie he's ever been in.
Wow, that
So
video
Josh
would be
Gad
like
has now
15
become a
hours
Disney
long.
Deconstructed meme. It's
Yeah.
confirmed.
I watched that Hulu zombie movie. Was it Little Nightmares or Little Monsters? I think it's
Little
called.
Women.
No, not that one. I think it's called Little Monsters. But Josh Gad is in it as like a sort of, I think, Mr. Rogers-ish type character, and he like curses and stuff at one point.
Oh.
It's like very interesting to hear him curse.
Yeah, that's weird. It's like
Yeah.
watching that Josh Peck meme of him screaming
Yeah.
at the kids on the boat.
When he was
yeah.
in Mean Creek.
Yes, yes.
Dude, I found that on YouTube when I was like 10 and it scarred me. I was like,
I know a
"What?
little bit.
Josh
Weird.
Peck, no.
I know.
All right. I think that we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more news and debates and more Preston Moore. So we'll be right back. Thank you, everyone. And we're back. Thank you for rejoining us. We are going to do some debates because apparently that's what Jake wants to do.
We'll see.
All right. I guess, Jake, take it away. I don't.
I'll take it away. I could not agree more with Preston about his take with Frozen 2. I don't think it's any good. I did not think it was a step up from the last movie. And honestly, I couldn't agree more. Spencer, what do you say to that? Conversational judo.
Dude, why did you just do that?
Because it's a take of his, and I agree. So let's go.
Do not agree. You like Frozen 2.
That's false. I said I didn't like it on the first time around. I heard you talk about it. I said, you know what? It's probably good. I should watch it again. And I never did. So,
Frozen 2 is fantastic.
all right. Preston.
I've talked about at length on this show how much I love Frozen 2. I know what his take is, and you just set this up.
I'm ready for the slam down.
I don't like Frozen 2 at all. I really don't. And I rewatched it a few nights ago, so like I'm pretty fresh on this. Because I wanted to put on something that has good music, but I don't have to pay attention to the story.
Oh,
Because the story's not good.
Agreed.
I just, I've seen the arguments for it, and I'm always like, I'm very much on the side of, if you like a movie, that's great, and I'm glad you like it, and I wish I did. Like, I'm not trying to be like, that sucks and you're an idiot for liking it. Like, I'm not like that. But I don't understand the appeal for it. The music is great, like most of it. Into the Unknown, that's a bop. Show Yourself, that's a bop. I love those two songs so much. And a couple of the other ones are pretty good too. But the story itself just gets so convoluted for me in that third act, and the whole the idea that like Elsa is trying to find herself, and she needs to, that she ended up being the fifth I don't remember what I want to
exactly because exactly. You said it exactly right.
It's just like it doesn't at all make sense to me. It makes sense, but it also at the same time, when I'm listening to it, I'm like, what is going on? When you look at the first movie, I think it's a much more complex plot in the second than the first. I will say that, and you can make a case that that's to its benefit, but I don't think it is, because in the first one, it's very laid out. I mean, like, pretty simple plot. Elsa goes off, she's got these powers, she's bad, she thinks she's bad, and then all of a sudden she's good, and then the plot twist with Hans and all that stuff. Like, it's a very pretty simple plot. And then in Frozen 2, it's like it throws away a lot of the things that Frozen 1 did, like a lot of the ideas of being like just a simple plot, like simple thing. It makes it super complex. And then the one thing, and I'm gonna let you talk, but the one thing that I hate so much is there are a couple things that I hate so much, but one of my least favorite moments of any movie last year was when Elsa is like going through and she's seeing all her memories and, like, I don't know, snow, ice, fog, whatever it is. And she sees herself singing Let It Go. And she's like, oh God, that sucks. What?
Yeah.
I get, like, that's a play on, like,
that's a funny.
Let It Go became like, everybody hates it because it's so popular and overplayed. I get it was overplayed, but it was overplayed because it was freaking good. And for her to just like be like, I don't know, like appalled by that moment, when you look at her as a character, like, that was a massive moment for her. That was the moment for her. That's her defining moment as a character. And then she's just like, oh, like, that was so cheap and for laughs, clearly, and I hated it. Oh, it disgusted me. Anyways, I'm done.
Whoa. All right.
I also thought that was cringy.
It was the worst.
So here's the polar opposite of that opinion about it, about how it's different from the. So I've made this point, and Jake actually agrees with me on this, that Frozen 2 is a movie that grew up with its audience. So Frozen 1 is a very, like you said, straightforward, almost like a fairy tale. It's like a fairy tale that has like some subverting of your expectations comedy in there too. About like how Anna's kind of like a stereotype princess, and they kind of make fun of her the whole movie a little bit. And that's fun. It's kind of like a new age fairy tale that kind of pokes fun at those older things. Frozen 2 is like a movie that developed from that, and they just expand this world and basically like break open all of these cool like Nordic mythology and stuff. And to me, like, I thought that stuff was amazing. Like all the spirit things. I thought it was just so different than what I thought it was going to be, that to me it was awesome. and it wasn't your typical sequel. So I get also that it feels like so much more complicated than Frozen 1. It definitely is. Like, that's a valid take. But I think that's purposefully done because it grew up with the people who initially loved Frozen 1. Like, the younger people, Frozen 1 are now at an age where maybe they're more interested, because Frozen 2 is essentially like a fantasy film. It's not really a Disney princess movie. It's like a fantasy
an anime
epic.
almost.
Yeah, it's like an animated like fantasy epic. And so I think it is a natural evolution there, where they're just, I thought like everything you said as the flip was why it was great. It was so different. I love that. As far as Elsa cringing at herself, I think that it kind of plays into like the growing up aspect, where she's kind of looking back at like just like something she did in her, I know, I see your face. She's looking back at something she did in her past, and it's kind of like cringing at it, even though like it's a defining moment for her. I think Frozen 2 is also about finding yourself even more. Like, what's her purpose? Why? It's about answering a lot of these higher questions in Frozen 1 that necessarily Frozen 1 didn't have to answer. Like, why does Elsa have powers? Like, what happened to their parents? Like, these things that like a fairy tale would just kind of accept that they happen. Frozen 2 decides to like dive into that mythology and get to like the point of why things are the way that they are. And to me, that's awesome. But also, like, hearing you talk, I'm like, okay, well, I get it. Because it's just like we watched the same thing and just had two like polar reactions to like what was going on. So it's not like you're just like, no, it's stupid. Like, you have an interesting take there. Versus some people who just hate it because they hate on Frozen. I'm like, get out of here, man. Like, it's a great franchise.
No, I don't want to listen to that. But I think another part of it for me that I didn't like, that I wish I would, there are a couple things. Both Olaf and Kristoff are just like reduced to the most either confusing and like not making sense arc, or
Dude, they disappear. They just disappear into the background.
Kristoff's whole bit of like wanting to propose but never being able to find the right time, like, that's so overdone and overplayed, and like it's very cliche, and they don't do anything interesting with it. And the exact thing that you think is going to happen happens. At the end of the day, he proposes, she says yes, we're happy, and they go through a couple gaps where he tries to propose and it's not her, and that makes for some funny jokes, but at the end of the day, it's like this has been done so many times. Like, really, come on.
Made for a dope Weezer song.
The song was dope. I like the song.
That's I'll concede
music
with you,
but
that point that they are in the background, but I think their two songs make up for it. Like, When I Get Older with Olaf is hilarious. Just like a song about having anxiety and just like thinking everything's going to be fine, and then it's never fine. And it never, just when you're younger, that moment in time where you think adults have it figured out, and then you become an adult and realize nobody has it figured out. I just thought it was hilarious. So I think, yes, they are in the background, but they're two like power songs, especially Lost in the Woods. Like, that's probably the best song in the movie, comedy wise. Like, it's hilarious with this reindeer like 80s number. But
I was very put off by it when I first saw it.
Really?
I was very put off too. I was like, whoa.
I like the song, but at the end, I was with my girlfriend. I looked over and I was like, what? It's like, this is not Frozen anymore. What the heck? It was very, I felt like it was out of place, but really funny and a good song. I enjoyed it. And then the whole thing with Olaf, like, I think the song is cute, but I think that the idea, and Josh Gad said it was his own idea, and Josh Gad.
Josh Gad, whatever, creative genius, we all get it.
Yeah,
world sweetheart.
I like Josh Gad, and I like Olaf a lot. Like, I loved him in the first one, and I like him in this one, but I think the whole idea of him like struggling with getting older and age, like, I think I don't want to downplay it because he's a snowman, but part of it is just like
I don't think any human has ever said that.
I like that.
I don't want to downplay it because he's a snowman.
I'd probably like it more if he was a human kid who was like growing up. Instead, he's like he's a fantastical snowman. It doesn't hit me.
It's a stretch.
It doesn't hit me the way I want it to, and he doesn't seem to be, I mean, he says things, there's a moment where he's like, I'm kind of feeling some rising anger at Elsa, and like, yeah,
I love that.
But he's Olaf, he's a snow. I don't know. It didn't work for me, and I think I don't know if that's I don't want to say it's because he's a snowman, because I think that would be close-minded of me, I guess.
Preston Moore hates snowmen.
I'm gonna get
Breaking
canceled.
news.
But it just it didn't work for me. I wanted it to, but it didn't.
Just jumping off of that, because here's the thing. Here's the breaking point between you two is that I grew up with the audience. And Preston is on the page of why did they do that? It didn't work. They made weird decisions. Spencer's like, it's cool because we got to explore worlds, which is, by the way, objectively cool. The disconnect with me was that there's something to be said about growing up with the audience and making a kid's movie. And then we forget Frozen 1 came out like 8 years ago. So like the 6-year-old, 7-year-old girls which saw it are like now in high school. So like it is properly, or not high school, I don't know.
Exactly.
But it is ready to like be a more, not mature, because it's still like a rated G or PG, family movie. But there's something to be said about exploring and just like diving into deeper themes. But and even the decisions they made some of them were objectively cool. If you're going to tell me, and this is the exact one, if you're going to tell me we're going to make a scene with these giant rock monsters and they're going to be chasing them down the earth giants, and it's going to be taking from like the Nordic lore and but I'm just watching it and I'm like, dude, I just feel like they're planning for a ride. It just looks like a ride, and the scene didn't even fit in with the movie. And there's so many moments like that to me that just like the logic didn't connect. Like at the climax of the movie, when all the water's rushing down and she needs to like build the wall to save the town, where'd the water go? It would just come right back around because there's nowhere for it to go. Like the physics didn't make sense.
Okay, if we're gonna go into
and
physics of an
and then I
animated
was
movie,
then I was like, why? What was the decision to make it an 80s pop song? It just like didn't make sense to me.
because it was
Like,
funny.
a million
and it's
other
him just
things.
like singing his heart out about how he
Right,
loves
but
it. He
I
doesn't have
just
the
thought
courage.
the first movie didn't have moments that pulled me out.
No,
And the
100%.
exact same thing happened with Captain Marvel. I mean, the movies couldn't be more different. But smack in the middle of the movie, they tell me the bad guys are the good guys and the good guys are the bad guys. And by the way, the Tesseract is here. And I'm like, wait a minute. I am so confused at what you just told me in 30 seconds. The movie just sucks. And you're not going to be able to make it up. It could be the coolest ending of all time. But I am so confused that there's no turning back.
I will
that's
say I agree with that. That Frozen, this is one of my criticisms in my like review of Frozen 2, was that the beginning, like everything happened so quickly, and like 25 minutes in, like they have just hit you with so much information that you're kind of just like, For me, that was necessary, and then the payoff was worth that. But I also understand if it's just like, what is going on? Like this is the first Frozen is a fairy tale, and this is like this weird like mythology movie. Exactly.
Like, no, all of these things. Yeah.
I think this is like what my take is, that it's Disney's How to Train Your Dragon. They went from like a fun kids movie to try and to do this like not mature, but like more teen, young adult take with just like mythology and just like more mature themes. But I also, that's a movie that I can understand the criticism for it, definitely, because it's just a different reaction to like the same thing, you know?
Yeah. So it just hit with one person. It didn't. The one will just remember the movie for that like water chase scene. It just like it felt so clearly like they were just setting up a ride, and like it never came back. I guess the rock monsters came back, but it was just, I don't know. That scene just really rubbed me in a place that I didn't want it to. I said,
I'll be honest, I don't feel like it did grow with the audience. I feel like it's like a crime to compare it to How to Train Your Dragon.
Whoa,
because How to Train Your Dragon is like my beloved animated franchise. So don't you dare do that. But like I don't know, it still felt young and dumb and silly. Like I don't and like if you're trying to grow with the audience, like how to Train Your Dragon did or how Toy Story did, you have to bring a certain level of maturity to it. And there are moments like that in Frozen 2, but they kind of get, for the joke, lost in the woods. With moments like Lost in the Woods, you know, it's like they try to play off the laughs too many times, and it makes it suffer. And so like I didn't really feel like it was more adult than the first one at all. And I don't know. I mean, like I have a lot of the same critiques that Preston and Jake do, but I mean, I'm not like the biggest Frozen fan. I've said that on the show multiple times. I thought that Frozen 2 was fine. I thought that I liked it. I thought that a lot of things. I thought that the storyline got unnecessarily complex. Like I didn't understand. Like I thought that it was stupid that they killed Olaf in quotes. Because
everybody saw that.
everyone knew that he was going to come back. You're not going to kill Olaf. And then, like even
he is a snowman after.
Yeah, even the 5-year-old in front of me knew that he was going to come back. And then you like had Elsa like freeze, but then send this like message across the ocean to Anna, and then they just never explained that, and it was just weird. And then they had the whole thing with like I liked Elsa's storyline, her arc in Frozen 2. I thought that it was good. I didn't really get some of like the other characters, like Jesus, what's his name?
Jesus?
Yeah, Jesus. Dude, he wasn't in the movie enough. Kristoff straight up just disappears in this movie. And then Olaf is just Olaf's just following people around being funny. And that's fine. But whatever. And Anna, she's like, I liked her for the most part. What the main thing that bothered me about her arc was that she's like, yes, I'll be queen of Arendelle at the end, and there was like never a conversation that happened where she like expressed a want to be queen or a desire for leadership or anything like that. Like really all her only drives were to find her sister, and her relationship with Kristoff. Those were like, from what I remember, I haven't rewatched it, but I remember those being like her two drives in the movie. And I don't remember anything about leadership, but they just kind of threw it in there because there was like, this will be convenient. And
it'll be good because now we can make new dolls that give Anna the crown.
Right. Yeah. It'll be a nice little merch.
That's how I felt about the movie.
So that was like a lot. I felt like there were some like unnecessarily complex and oddly like convenient things in the story, like that. So yeah, and I really didn't feel like it aged with the audience. Definitely not to the extent that say Toy Story or How to Train Your Dragon does.
Where's the thing? We can agree to disagree, but the critical reception I think was way on Spencer's side. So you got the dub there. Anyways, I want to go through two things really quickly. We don't even need to really discuss it. I just need people to know because it's like so insane. And then we can talk about like the last thing. So first things first, Preston Moore has like his 5-star ranking movies on Letterboxd, and a movie which we actually just talked about really recently, Pirates of the Caribbean: At World's End, is on this list. And movies like 2001: A Space Odyssey aren't. And movies like Citizen Kane, like in a world where like movies exist, my favorite one is the one that's not even like the best in the trilogy. So that's fine. Second of all, I just need to be put out there. The thing that you do with The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I mean, I have to imagine it's a joke.
God.
I just literally have to imagine it's a joke because I can't even remember one redeeming quality about it. I mean, we retweeted something like, it's so sad that this suit is sitting in a closet somewhere. Like, it looks like a Lego. So it's not even like a cool suit. So
okay, I disagree.
I don't know what's
the suit
going
is
on.
Awesome.
Okay. The suit is cool. I think the suit is really good.
That's really false. That's really false.
Add a disclaimer for that letterbox. That
okay, fine.
Include, as I explained to Jake before the show, that list is not a comprehensive my best films of all time.
Okay, but that is the way it looks. Basically.
Since I got Letterboxd, I have ranked these movies as 5 stars, and I think that.
Right, but so have you not seen the other Pirates of the Caribbeans?
I have, and I like all of them except like
But
the
we
first
chose the objectively weirdest one to be on the list, but not the ones that are like just good because they're good.
I think At World's End is good because it's good.
I don't know if At World's End is objectively the weirdest one.
I do. When
At
there's
World's End
15 Jack
slaps.
Sparrows in
At
one.
World's
It's
End
fun.
is so good.
It's fun,
I love At
but
World's End. I think
it
At
has
World's
to
End
be
is
the
incredible.
weirdest one. Has
Now-
to be.
Well, whatever. Anyways, Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is not a Disney movie, so I'm not going to stay on it for too long. I'm not joking. I genuinely think it is, it has its flaws. I'm not saying it's a masterpiece by any means.
Well, hold on. Here, I'll just ask you actually before you go. Have you seen it?
Yeah, it's
Because
I've-
if you saw it, I mean, I
have-
think maybe we saw a different movie. That might have been it.
maybe.
I saw
Maybe.
the original Spider-Man 2.
No,
Do you
I'm
remember that one?
Amazing Spider-Man 2 starring Andrew Garfield.
No, because
Yeah.
there was like a scene with eels in it, so
Yeah.
that automatically just made it like
Just
no good.
cuts you off. No eels. No movie.
No eels
That's
for
my
Jake.
thing.
No eels.
Eels, no go.
Jake doesn't like eels on
No eels.
set.
I like eel sauce. That's good.
All right.
I think I like Amazing Spider-Man 2 quite a lot.
What was your favorite part of it?
Right.
favorite
Yeah,
part?
exactly.
Yeah.
There is a scene where, well, first of all, the ending when he walks up to the little kid who's dressed up as Spider-Man, I love.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
That
Dude, the ending
the
is
movie
him
has-
about to fight
Rhino.
and
Rhino.
he's
guys-
Yeah.
swinging a
I'm just saying,
thing.
I didn't when I because I rewatched all the Spider-Man movies in preparation for Spider-Man Far From Home. I didn't expect to like Amazing Spider-Man 2 because I hadn't seen it since I was, 14, 15, I don't know, whenever it came out.
Yeah.
And I remember like liking it when I was then because I was, I liked every movie then. But rewatching it, I was like, okay, this is like the worst one. I'm not gonna like it. Nobody likes it. And then I watched it and I was like, what the heck? I really like this. So I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying if you haven't seen it lately, give it a rewatch. And then if you still have the same opinion, that's completely fine. But I think there are a lot more redeeming moments than people on Twitter and on the internet and wherever give it credit for. There are so many just quintessential Spider-Man moments where he's just being a superhero, like a good guy to random bystanders. And I absolutely love it. And I don't, I'm not going to start with Far From Home, but I don't think Far From Home has that many.
Agreed.
Yes.
Lane hates it.
Yes. Yes.
Far From Home let me down, but
Far
that's
From
all.
Home sucks.
I like that moment in Amazing Spider-Man 2 at the very end where he returns after whatever 7-8 months of not being Spider-Man. And then I also really like the Times Square scene where Electro is
Oh my
super
goodness.
confused and doesn't know what's going on. And there's this awesome moment where Electro like fires electricity and it goes up the rails of those red stairs in Times Square, and there's a bunch of civilians on there and they're like reaching for the rails trying to get it, and Spider-Man in epic slow-mo does this cool little thing where he just presses one button on his wrist and it like shoots out, and it essentially all of his webs just grab everyone who was about to grab on the rails and get electrocuted and die, and it stops them. And I think that's cool, and I think there are many other moments in that movie that are cool, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that there are moments where it sucks.
Right. Yeah.
And I
mean,
I
I would be
accept
remiss
that.
if I didn't say that you were just wrong.
but
That's
Oh
fine.
my
Because
god.
I think the one that we need to talk about, like actually, to the point where like I think freedom of speech needs to be brought in, because I don't understand how this like is continually a thing for years now. So now this The Last Jedi is your favorite Star Wars of all time?
Yeah.
Oh, like like that basically all I can do when I see you tweeting about that and like making it is I just go like this.
I believe that.
My in your defense, my views on The Last Jedi have changed.
So much.
No, I never
By the
hated
way.
it. I always thought it was good.
Okay.
I always thought it was good.
Okay,
I
I guess
was-
I'm with you because
I thought it was really good, actually. I there were moments that I disliked at the beginning that I've come around to liking them a lot more.
I'm
But-
actually.
mean-
what are those moments? Because I'm actually interested. Because I'm like a huge Last Jedi fan, so I'm
So-
interested in what those moments are for you.
did not like, and basically what everyone doesn't like, is the whole Finn and Rose and DJ
Yeah,
arc.
Immediate
Canto Bite.
disqualifier for best Star Wars movie.
What?
The Canto Bite is the immediate disqualification as the best Star Wars movie.
Agreed.
I came around on that, but the one thing that I still, I don't love, but I think it has so many redeeming aspects in the rest of the movie that I can put it aside, is the idea of, or not the idea, it's not an idea, is John Boyega and what's her name, Kelly Marie Tran, their chemistry is not good. Like they work together, and the kiss that she gives him, like that at all. Still don't. But I think there are so many other qualities of that movie and so many other scenes and arcs that redeem any issues I have with that, because they're not massive issues. It's just like, oh, that kiss was weird, but okay. It doesn't ruin anything for me.
And to your credit, there's quite literally kisses in the original trilogy that are weird and don't make any sense because they're brother and sister. So that's fine. But in the context of, you were like, well, the arcs and everything, in the context of the whole sequel trilogy, which, by the way, I'm not too keen on after Rise of Skywalker. You too. But it doesn't change the fact that The Last Jedi just like quite literally doesn't make any sense in it all. It literally doesn't make any sense.
I think
every cool moment in The Last Jedi ended up getting erased.
Yeah, that's because, that's not The Last Jedi's fault.
Right, I guess.
If you look at the grand context of like all of the sequel trilogy, it's a mess, because JJ came in with The Rise of Skywalker, and I don't even know what happened with the whole Colin Trevorrow thing, whatever. But he came in, and The Rise of Skywalker watches as if it's a movie that wants to be a sequel to The Force Awakens, but has to deal with the fact that The Last Jedi exists.
100%.
But I don't think that I'm going to take away from The Last Jedi because of that. I think The Last Jedi builds on a lot of the things that The Force Awakens sets up pretty well.
That's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think I enjoy that it has a definitive ending, The Last Jedi. You can watch The Last Jedi and watch it to where the ending of that movie is like, okay, I'm okay with that being the ending. I can pretend Rise of Skywalker doesn't exist, but
that's not true.
I wouldn't, discredit The Last Jedi for things that The Rise of Skywalker did, because The Rise of Skywalker, I don't know if any of you guys like it, but that movie,
I love it.
Okay, well, I'm glad you like it. I want it.
You've cultivated that response really well.
I think that movie is a mess, and I think it takes a lot of the things that The Last Jedi did and undoes them, or just kind of
tweaks them
and just throws them out the window, essentially.
Right. Well, there's a difference between it being your favorite of the sequels or your favorite moment that Rey has or whatever versus my favorite Star Wars movie ever.
It is.
Because every cool moment in The Last Jedi, whether you agree with it, if you're a crazy fan or not, just doesn't end up working in Star Wars. So how can it be your favorite Star Wars if it just objectively doesn't really work?
I don't think that's like the...
What do you mean it doesn't work? It's a very broad...
Like you can watch Star Wars, A New Hope, and like there's no like thought pieces that just like don't make it click chronologically or narratively. Like it just is a movie that works on its own and works within the franchise. Last Jedi just objectively doesn't. And then on top of that has Canto Bite and the kiss and just a million different other things.
But that's not The Last Jedi's fault. That's what he's saying. Is you can't blame it for Rise of Skywalker.
I don't think that, I think you can watch The Last Jedi by itself, and it's in it. I don't remember your exact words, but I think it does fit that description of you can watch it by itself and it's good. And you have a story alone that you can like. I think that, there are things that it does that in the eventual grander Star Wars canon get undone, or whatever, different, Snoke's a clone,
Rise
whatever,
of Skywalker.
stuff like that.
They got Rise of Skywalker.
Nah, dude, you don't get it. Dude,
And-
Palpatine fucks, bro.
Yeah. But I don't take away from The Last Jedi because of those things. I think I can still watch The Last Jedi, and it sucks that in the back of my mind now I'm like, well, Snoke was a clone the whole time. But if I'm watching The Last Jedi under the impression that is clearly the truth, that the people making The Last Jedi had no idea what to do with Episode 9, then I can assume that at that time Snoke isn't a clone, even though he is. When I'm watching it, I can kind of think in my head, I can be like, well, it's very clear that they didn't know when they were making Last Jedi that Snoke was just going to be a throwaway clone, and all of these other things that they do with The Rise of Skywalker. So
it's just all of those things make me not like the movie. Like it's just like the same thing with Frozen. I like just get confused, and there's just like a thought, like I just disconnect from the thing that they're trying to tell me, so that it just ends up at feeling weird.
I'll say that for me, like picking my favorite Star Wars movie, which for me is Empire, like I will say that like for me it's not like which one connects to everything the best. It's the one that like I just enjoy watching on its own.
Yeah, well then that's different.
Like that, and I think that I don't know if I'm interpreting Preston, if I'm interpreting what you're saying right, it's the same thing for you. I love watching The Last Jedi on its own. And I've seen it probably like 8 or 9 times. Actually, I mean, I don't know what I think that Rise of Skywalker is probably up there with my favorites because I really did enjoy it. It's a mess, but it's a hot mess. I'll say that. But I think that Empire, at least for now, without giving thought to it, is still probably my favorite. Because it's the one that I think I've watched. I enjoy the most watching on its own. It's like I don't need to watch it all the way through. I don't feel like I'm suffering through it like Attack of the Clones, which is ungodly long.
Yeah, I see that.
But I feel like that's the way to think about your favorite Star Wars movie.
As someone who doesn't like The Last Jedi necessarily, my opinion wavers on it a lot. I do agree with you, Preston, that it's upon rewatches, it always gets better. I've never rewatched it again and like had that same initial reaction I had to it, which was like, what the did I just watch? Yeah. When every time I rewatch it, I'm like, well, the Luke stuff is really strong, or the Rey Kylo Ren stuff is like really strong. It's always like stronger than the Canto Bight. I just have such a weird relationship with Last Jedi, but I agree. Upon rewatches, it always the good always becomes more apparent.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's made by such a good, like Rian Johnson is objectively a good filmmaker.
Yeah,
and like there's just moments in there that you can't take that away from him where he's just so talented. But yeah, Last Jedi is weird, man. What a weird movie to discuss.
Yeah. Really weird. I just wish, why couldn't they have just put one single shot in Rise of Skywalker of the little kid with the broom? Dude, one single shot.
Oh my God, I would have hated that.
Yeah.
I would have fucking hated that.
The broom is just a metaphor for there's good left in the galaxy. The Force will never
so let's
die.
see the
That's
good.
all it is. It's a visual metaphor.
Oh my God.
See the good at Rise of Skywalker when literally everyone ever shows up at the end to help them. That's all Broom Kid is that there's hope out there. It's just a visual metaphor.
Preston, did you want to see Broom Kid again?
Broom Kid? I don't think I'm ready to see Broom Kid again.
Yeah, all right. Thank you. All right, let's move on. Picks of the week. So my pick of the week to start off is echoing what we were talking about last week. I have been rewatching Pirates of the Caribbean. I finished Dead Man's Chest last night. Nice. God, it's so good. I haven't seen it in so long. What shocked me was
for the next one.
Yeah, I know. Wait for World's End. Oh my God. But holy shit, the special effects on the crew of the Dutchman, and especially on Davy Jones, hold up so well. Like,
it came out like the same time as Revenge of the Sith, and there's CGI in Revenge of the Sith that is abysmal.
Oh my God. Like the special effects on Davy Jones's face when he's introduced and he's got like the the light of his pipe on him, and
Yeah.
he puffs his smoke and it comes out of his little like tentacle hole, whatever it's
Mhm.
called. It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
it's just incredible to watch, and it still looks crazy.
Mhm.
So that's that. I love that. I can't wait to watch the next one, especially at World's End, and then I'll also rewatch On Stranger Tides and Dead Men Tell No Tales.
Mhm.
But I'm especially excited for At World's End. And then, because that's really just echoing what we were talking about for picks of the week last week, I'll also do something else. This isn't exactly Disney, but Justin Scard did a magnificent, I think it's 40-minute documentary on YouTube on the 100th anniversary, looking back at the history of Knott's Berry Farm. So I watched that and it was awesome.
I really need to watch that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Lots of historical footage, lots of old photos, really, really cool stuff. Yeah, so he did an amazing job on that. You should definitely check it out if you are a fan of Disney or Knott's Berry Farm or theme parks in general. So that's my those are my picks of the week.
I see that. Okay, I'll go quick because mine is extremely half-baked. Other than adding on the how cool the effects are, I spent like a solid 15 minutes while I was supposed to be on a Zoom class scrolling through like concept art for all the crew. It's so cool. I mean, they really cared about all those movies. But I mean, that one, yeah, like you were saying, completely not only holds up, but looks great for today's standards.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyways, last night I started watching, that's why I said half-baked, for the first time ever, somehow, X-Men. I never saw any of the X-Men other than Deadpool and Deadpool 2, obviously, which doesn't necessarily count. So I like it way more than I thought I would. The conversation around those older X-Men movies were always the like, it's like such an early superhero movie that they tried to take all the superhero out and it's really monochrome and like taken seriously. That's what made Spider-Man so cool, because it embraced the comics. I didn't find that necessarily at all. It was really fun. I didn't realize how much Holocaust was going to be in it, but besides that, it was really cool. And I'm really looking forward to finishing it and watching the rest, and then watching like First Class when they go back with Matthew Vaughn. That sounds really fun.
I've heard that one's really good.
Yeah, that's what I hear. And X-Men's going to be in the MCU eventually, so I would like to see these. I've also always wanted to see Logan, but I'm not just going to watch that without any context.
You need to watch that when you're ready to have like an emotional experience.
I'm sure. But yeah, I'm excited. I mean, just like I started watching, or I saw Lord of the Rings, like I just like opened up such a world of things that I just never saw. So I'm looking forward to it. And we'll talk about it once I get through them, because it'll be fun to talk about how to fit it in MCU. Eventually.
That's cool. I think like I've definitely seen both the Deadpool movies. I've seen X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is, iffy.
Yeah.
And then I've seen part of the Wolverine.
There's just I don't even know all the movies. Like there's so many things.
Yeah. And then I've seen Logan. So I've seen like most of the Wolverine. The Wolverine ones. I just haven't seen all of the Wolverine. And then I think I've seen part of First Class, and maybe part of some of the earlier ones, but those are spotty. I haven't seen them all the way through. But
they're on HBO, or most of them are.
Oh,
on HBO.
okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so
is one of my favorite comic book movies of all time.
First Class.
Wow.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. It looks really colorful and saturated and cool.
It's really fun, and the new cast is great. And most people love Days of Future Past. Most people regard that as like the best X-Men team movie, but First Class is the best. But I like both of them.
Yeah, I personally, Logan is one of my favorite superhero movies of all time.
Oh yeah,
I'm so excited to watch that.
It's definitely in the conversation. That's for sure.
Yeah.
My picks of the week. I have one Disney one and then one that's on Netflix, but I think is a must watch that you just have to see. The fact that no one talks about it blows my mind. But for Disney, my girlfriend Elaine and I started watching Disney fairy tale weddings the other day on Disney.
Oh yeah,
I'm not gonna lie, man. Like it's entertaining. It's like very heartwarming to like see. Sometimes it's creepy, where these people are like so obsessed. Like you need to relax,
dude. Oh my god!
But there are moments on it that are so genuinely cute, and there's such great footage of like the parks and the different resorts that you never get to see. Like Aulani, there's a lot of good stuff on that. Like Castaway Key or K, whatever it's called. I don't know.
Key.
Castaway Key. But I think that's very, again, in my series of recommendations, it makes me nostalgic for Disney and Disneyland. And I just miss not even going to the parks, but just knowing I can go to the parks. I miss that.
I started watching the first episode, and I was just the whole time I was just wondering how much money all those people had.
I don't know if ABC pays for it because they're featured on the show. I have no idea. But there's that, and then on Netflix there is an animated series based on Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham called Green Eggs and Ham, and I'm not kidding. It's one of the best animated series I've ever seen. It's so good.
It looked really good. The trailer looked incredible. The animation looked great.
It is 2D animated. It's brilliant. Oh, wow. There's great characters. It's a 13 episode like mini series that tells like a story that's like environmentally relevant and like just it's so smart. It's so well written. It's like kid friendly, but it's also just like really good animation. I started an episode on Easter because that's eggs in it, and I wanted to feel some sort of emotion because I was alone on Easter. So I turned on Green Eggs and Ham, and I watched the whole series in one sitting. I was like, "This
wow, it's on Netflix."
Didn't turn it. Yes, on again. Going back to Netflix being strong. Yeah, Green Eggs and Ham on Netflix. Must watch.
Their animation department has really been upping their game.
It was WB Animation and then like Dr. Seuss's company put it together. I guess Dr. Seuss's stuff is like public domain. So Illumination makes a lot of those movies because they can and they're lazy. But WB Animation made the best Dr. Seuss adaptation I've ever seen, which is Green Eggs.
That's cool.
I'll definitely really be watching that. Story. It's just, it's so good. It's so good. Yeah. Preston, do you have any Disney Plus, anything you'd recommend people to watch?
Well, yeah. I don't know if I might name stuff that you guys have said in the past, and if I do, I'm sorry. In this quarantine thing, I watched all of Star Wars Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. And if you haven't seen those and you're a Star Wars fan and you put it off for years like I did, you're missing out a lot because those are so good, and the Clone Wars is heating up quite a lot. And I've really been enjoying that. And now's the perfect time to do it. I also recently watched Togo, the Disney Plus movie with
Will. Yeah.
That was like super quiet, and I never saw Call of the Wind or Call of the Wild with Harrison Ford. But it's surprising to me that that movie, which was received poorly at least, was put out in the theaters and Togo wasn't, because Togo was very, very good. It's beautiful.
Really?
Cinematography in that next level. It's based on the story, and Willem Dafoe is great. I really liked it. And then I don't know, do I have anything else? Probably not. No, that's it.
I'm bummed you said that about Clone Wars. I've tried so many times to watch it. I have not gotten past season 1. I like the idea of they put out like a collection, like the 20 essential episodes. Yeah. And everything I see out of the episodes that are coming out now looks so cool. I really liked Rebels. I saw like the first 2.5, maybe even 3 seasons. Really, really liked that. It's just, I don't know if it's just like too serialized because it was like properly a kid's show when it started or what. But I know that it's good. I just like can't bring myself to do it.
Yeah, I was like that in my life. I understand. But I love Clone Wars. I got hooked on it pretty quickly, and the episodes are like super wonky and like the timeline, so I had to like look up like the StarWars.com official like timeline of
it's bizarre the way it's structured, like episodically. They'll have like arcs that take breaks and then come back. It's just weird.
Yeah, it's odd. I've been like trying to get through. I'm near the end of the first season, and the first season's just plain hard to get through.
It is. Unfortunately.
There's just a lot of Jar Jar.
A lot.
And Ahsoka hasn't like become cool yet. She's just kind of like she's just like a lot of her lines are just like annoying. Like it's almost like they're like trying to paint her as like this annoying young person who doesn't know anything.
It's exactly what they were trying to paint her as.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, and I know that she like is very cool later on.
Her and
according
Rebels
to a lot of people.
Awesome.
Yeah, and we know that she's gonna be in Mandalorian now.
Yeah.
However you feel about that, them kind of closing the loop a bit more. But so for those two things, it's been harder to get through season 1, but I'm making my way through. Yeah, I really want to like Ahsoka.
Yeah, I adore that character. I think she is one of the best Star Wars characters there is. She's
sure.
She gets better in the Clone Wars. I see what you're saying with the season 1 thing. She's not great in season 1 of the Clone Wars, but
she hasn't had a chance to like do anything. Like she just like all she does is mess up, and it's like, come on, writers, what are you doing? Like you have the chance to paint like this strong new character, and like you're just doing nothing with her.
Well, when you see like her entire arc and when she gets a lot more involved in the later seasons, like I don't want to say you appreciate it more, but there's a little bit where you look back and you're like, it makes a little bit more sense because she does have this really big arc that she and it's
I loved hearing her voice at the end of Rise of Skywalker.
I didn't even know it was hers whenever I watched it.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen the show yet.
Yeah, I love that Easter egg. All right. Well, I think we'll end things off here for now since we are very out of time and super out of topics. So thank you for listening to this episode of the Disney Deconstructed Podcast. And if you'd like to further support our show and what we do, go ahead and visit us at anchor.fm/Disney Deconstructed. There you can see every listening platform we're currently available on. Visit our Instagram and YouTube page, which is new, by the way, and send us messages related to the show, and even sign up to make monthly donations to further support us and keep these episodes rolling out in a timely fashion. Make sure to check out the rest of the Deconstructed Podcast Network and give us a follow on Twitter at Lain Calder, at Jake Moody 98, and at Spencer Bennett 7. You can also spread the word by telling a friend about our show and help us grow our small community of Disney fanatics. A very special thank you to Mr. Preston Moore. Thank you for joining us today.
It was fun. I'm glad I was able to do it. I had a lot of fun.
Yes, thank you for being here. Please give our listeners a shout out to what you're doing. Where can we find you? What's going on in your life?
Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of things since this whole quarantine thing started. Currently, I'm a writer for the Diz Insider, which is on Twitter at the Diz Insider. It's hard to, whatever. But I'm a writer for them, and then I have been working on my own personal stuff. I'm on Twitter at Preston C. Moore, and I recently launched a personal website, which is pretty exciting and took a long time. It was pretty cool. But yeah, Preston C. Moore on Twitter, Instagram, everything.
Amazing. Thank you again. Again, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you with more Disney news next week. Writing and producing for this episode of the Disney Deconstructed Podcast was done by my two co-hosts, Jake Moody and Spencer Bennett, and myself, Lain Calder. Editing was done by Lain Calder. The music for our program was composed by Brandon LaBelle. The font for our logo was designed by Edward Pincava. Our beautiful faces were drawn by Sarah Bermudez. Thanks for joining us, and go have yourself a zippity-doo-dah day. Stay safe out there, folks.